Well, we need to talk about Still Life, your album that just came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
So you've been getting some good reviews and stuff. How's it feeling for you that it's finally out?
It's really nice that it's finally out. In fact, today was the first day that I actually got to see one of them. Because I've been in Canada and Merge is in North Carolina, and then the other label is in London. The records were sent here, and so I hadn't held one or seen it. And so today, for the first time, I went to my dad's place and there was a box of them. And so I got to open it up and see the artwork and feel it, which is it's a nice feeling.
Yeah.
I mean, on a personal level, just like,
Yep.
There it is.
It's a real record now.
Yeah. And it's still, that's still new to me. I've only released one other record, technically,
right.
A real record.
Yep.
So it's exciting to be able to hold that and see. The artwork is on the front, and back is my great grandfather's work, and so it's nice to see that. And I got to give one to my papa today, my grandfather, his son. So was
there. That's it's beautiful, fantastic.
Yeah.
Now I got to say, I get the feeling after listening to the record a few times, this is definitely not a country record.
Yeah, I don't know. I have never had the intention of making a country record.
Right.
But
let's face it, you were first embraced by the country.
Totally.
And
yeah.
So,
but I think now it's maybe more a little bit like understood, but also like that wasn't necessarily my intention either. I think the songs came about in a way that was a bit more I think I have sat down before after spending time with country music or being around some stuff that you could call country, and sat down with the intention to sort of write something that sounded like what I had in my head.
Right.
And I think this album came about a bit more like viscerally, and then there weren't really a lot of, like, there were a couple that were specific musical references that, like, I made the record with Daniel Romano,
right,
that we spoke about, like song references, and none of those were country songs, but also it was a bit more just sort of like, I don't know, it just came together in this way that felt really organic. The songs were written before we went to record them, obviously.
Yep. But not necessarily. Sometimes it doesn't happen.
Yeah, sure. But in this case, the songs were written prior to that. So then, but what everyone else is hearing now, the way that they were recorded, how they came to be on that album, it was more like there wasn't really an agenda for it. I think because I'm not really a student of country music, for me to write country songs would be more of like an exercise that I would need to, like, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do this and I'm going to try to do it this way, and there was not a lot of that for even the recording. Definitely not the writing. So it just, these kind of, they feel different, I guess.
So I'm wondering, what you mentioned that you and Daniel had compared songs that you weren't country songs that you talked about. Were any of them by Tom Petty, perhaps?
Actually, no.
Okay.
But I can, people have said that, and I absolutely hear those things. It's funny because, like, a lot of, that's the thing about putting anything out into the world.
Yep.
That is, people are going to glean different things from it, you know, and, but absolutely, when people list off these names, I'm like, oh yeah, I can hear that now. Or, that, or I'm like, oh, who is that? Like, I've, there are some that I'm like,
the first track is Hawks Don't Share, and that has a guitar sound that reminded me of, you know, Mike Campbell or whoever, or Tom Petty himself. And I also love the way the horns sound in that. They sound different. Tell me what I'm listening to there.
Saxophone specifically was played by David Nardi, who is a member of the Outfit, Daniel's band, but he plays guitar in that band. But he grew up playing sax, and so he was one of the very few guests that we had come and play on the record. And so David came in and played sax on that song and Only Lovers. I'm trying to think right now. I'm so terrible. I don't have.
Oh, don't worry about it.
But yeah, so it was really cool to have David come in and play sax, but everything else horn wise is being played by Daniel on a MIDI keyboard.
Really?
Yeah. And even like the stuff that David played, Daniel, like, there were certain songs that like he had an idea for an arrangement that would then like shift something, you know. So it was really cool to be able to, because we had the limitation of like, it's just the two of us in the living room making this record. That sounds limiting because of COVID, you know. Whatever.
Right. Yeah.
But at the same time, it was like, it allowed us such freedom because it was just the two of us, and it was like on our own clock, and, you know, we could throw something out and listen to it, and it's like, no, that's not right. Let's try something else. Or like, we had the freedom to even think to do that, you know, like, well, and I just, yeah. So, I'm trying to connect my thoughts here. The cool thing about having David in there, the cool thing about being on our own watch, and Daniel being able to write these parts, whether it be strings or horns or whatever, was that then it was really nice to combine the two. The fact that we had like synthetic strings and synthetic orchestra, but then you have this very human sax being played. It was cool. I mean, and you know, we did what we could, and David played sax. And
he did.
And these shows coming up, he's going to be playing sax on during my set, which is really exciting for me. I've never had. Oh, cool. Really never had that in a live setting. So.
Now, another song I want to touch on, one of my favorites is Fingernail Moon. That has some accordion in it. And it's kind of almost a country waltz, but not quite.
Sure.
Fingernail moon, just a sliver like you. The fullness I once knew, hid behind the blue.
Yeah, Fingernail Moon kind of has that sort of like lilting, kind of sad, almost sort of Celtic or country sort of feel to it. And that melody I wrote, or it came to me or whatever, on a drive. I was driving actually through the hill country in the evening to go sing on somebody else's record, just like driving to a session. And I don't know, for some reason I didn't record it, so I was like, I have to just like sing this melody. And then I came back here. Actually, I was living in this house at the time, came back here and sat on the couch and grabbed a guitar and wrote Fingernail Moon, which I love. But I used to like, because I've had that one I wrote that before the pandemic, and so I was playing it some out, and I used to joke when I introduced it, because my mom is a poet, and I would, was it that she said? What did she say? Oh, she's like, it's a good thing that you're like the singer or the songwriter, and I'm the poet, because I would have called that a Toenail Moon, and that just wouldn't have sounded as good if you sang it.
There you go. She's right.
Yeah.
Now I see that you take part in quite a bit of the video making. You self-directed the 4 videos. The one in particular that I was hoping to touch on is for the one for Spoil on the Vine, which has got the tin foil and silver face thing. I'm glad to see there were no foil hats, because we've had some problems with that down here in New Zealand. But
Playmate, I'm afraid we've made some mistake. You think it was okay. Now no mystery remains.
Probably we made that about this time last year out in West Texas at my mom's, actually.
Right.
And she filmed it.
Oh,
yeah. So what did we, I mean, I had made one music video before, and it was quite a production, and I loved it. It was really cool. I had these people that I'd met through kind of the bar scene in Austin, who I met, they were dancers. Like we'd go out two-stepping, you know?
Right.
And squirrels are going crazy right now. But they were also involved with live theater, and I love to go see live theater. And anyways, I had this record coming out, and I needed to do a video, and I had never done anything like that before. And anyways, that's kind of a different story. But I got these other 2 people involved to like direct it, but I kind of had this idea, and we talked about it, but it was ultimately, you know, other people in charge, people that I wanted to be in charge. But, you know, anyway, so this was new to me this time around, sort of taking that on myself. And it was nice to just feel like I could do it. And that, I guess, was just being around Daniel, and he was like, well, let's just make it.
Yep.
Like today. And it was like, okay.
All right.
I mean, it was a little bit more involved than that, but like with that mentality, you know, and I had this idea, and I was playing with this word, and I sort of like just got a big piece of paper and had this word in the middle, and then just started kind of making a spider web out. And then I ended up with this narrative, and then we went and got a bunch of tinfoil. In fact, I think what happened was, actually, I had this idea, I was playing with this word, and then Daniel took a picture of me. He kind of, how did this, it was cool though, because it was like, it started out with this thing that I was playing with on paper, and then I was talking to Daniel about it, and he was like, oh, that's cool. And then like did this big elaborate thing, and like took this photo, and I was like, wow, like we should do something with that. And that sort of inspired the video.
Right.
So it was kind of a cool chain reaction thing. And yeah, I'm really proud of it. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. And it just was like, I did an interview earlier, and I brought this up, but this art show I just went to go see in Toronto, it was just incredible. And it was like so full. And as the person taking in the artwork, you are really actually kind of a part of the show itself. And that's all taken into account. And the room itself, the space is like a part of it. It was just really, it was wild and incredible and really compelling. And it made me think like, yes, I'm so glad I saw this. I'm so inspired. And like the amount of work outside of just the music and lyrics that went into making this album has made me feel a little bit more complete as an artist, because I feel like I exercised in a lot of different realms that were new to me, as far as like writing and directing these videos and figuring out to some extent like costume and design, and then also like I've done a lot of collage work for the songs, and I have something that hasn't been shared yet, but that like this series of, and it's just like all this visual work too, that's just, you know, it's playing with and continuing this conversation that was started with the songs. But it really, there's so much more going on as humans, you know, and it's just like, that's not enough. And I feel like I can exercise those muscles now, which is really nice.
Are you aware of that when you're writing the songs? Are you thinking about these other extensions of it?
You know, I don't think that I have been yet, but I bet you I will be moving forward. I mean, I think that, you know, different circumstances and scenarios will lead to different styles, and even of how things fall out of you, you know, or you know, where you end up, where you arrive at. But I bet that there will be songs in my near future that that I will have thoughts about those sorts of things while I'm writing them. Gotcha. Or that may even be inspired by something that I'm making, you know.
Yep.
So that's cool. And I think probably a lot of people do that, but definitely being around, I think Daniel thinks that way a lot. And I think, I mean, it's been strange to sort of be in a bit of isolation to, you know, for the past couple of years, and be around this very tight knit group of other creatives, you know.
Yep.
And that's been great. It's been, I hope, mutually beneficial, but you know, I'm inspired. Sure. And I'm very happy to be.
Now, another song I wanted to touch on is just called Folk Song. Coming up near the end of the album, and has a pretty interesting guitar sound to it. But what can you tell me about the song itself?
Beauty calls her sister's soul. A window pane reflects the sky. The little sparrow standing still, a victim of her own delight.
That song with the melody is borrowed from an old traditional song.
Is that Little Sparrow?
People call it Little Sparrow, or Come All Ye Fair and Tender Ladies.
Right.
And I actually now, because in the lyrics I reference the sparrow, because the sparrow's talked about in the original song.
Yep.
But there's a lot of different iterations of that tune. And everybody's like, oh, referencing Dolly Parton. And that's not the song that, or the version that I was as familiar with. But yeah, that song kind of, well, like I said, the melody's borrowed, and that one just kind of fell out also.
That's what folk music's all about, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and you know, it could be maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's a folk song.
It worked for Bob Dylan plenty of times.
You know? Yeah, and the song has, you know, that sort of a tale has been told many times, but I don't know. There's something that resonates with people, obviously, those sorts of things that get reused or recycled or retold in slightly different ways. And yeah, I've always loved that song, and or that melody. I mean, you know, and it sounds like a lot of other of those old melodies.
Yep. It's
beautiful. That's cool. And haunting, and yeah, it's funny though, that song, I do know that like a lot of it doesn't rhyme, which I kind of realized after the fact. And it just like, I know that there's certain lines that just sound right to me.
Sure.
But then I realized after the fact, I'm like, oh, but that didn't, even when I'm like writing poetry or prose or something, and I'll be talking about it, editing maybe with someone else, and I'm like, oh, but that it just like sounds like it has to be that way. Like it has to have that flow to it. And I don't know if it's because I'm thinking about the opening line of this book that I love, or what it is. But yeah, I realized after the fact that a lot of those verses don't rhyme, and I really like that.
Now, did you recently do some shows over in Europe?
I did. Well, I was doing shows in Spain when the pandemic began.
Right.
But I haven't done any shows since March 10th of 2020.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does that feel?
Bizarre. Yeah, it feels weird. And I think I realize now how much it means to me, right, to exercise that part of my my body and my mind, and likely my ego. I don't know, but yeah, it's strange, and we are really excited to get back at it.
Yep, because like a lot of people, your life has obviously changed quite a bit in the last 2 years. Everybody's been going through all sorts of stuff. You got married as well, so that's on time, and you moved up to Canada. So
yeah, it's been some really drastic changes, and really beautiful ones for me, which I feel really good about, and lucky to say that. Yeah. And yeah, it's strange how time and space seem to sort of go both ways at once, and it feels like it's been a long time, and it feels like no time at all. And
yep, yeah,
but yeah,
and I think a lot of creative people are finding this newfound isolation and time that they, you're not spending on the road and all that, to be something of a godsend, and something to be used while it's there. So
exactly. I mean, I think even people who aren't necessarily artists are feeling that way, like, oh, I need to make time to do this sort of thing, whatever that may be. Yeah.
Fantastic. So do you have some shows coming up?
Yes, we do.
Very
finally.
Good.
Well, it's just been like, oh no, we're going to postpone, or, and ultimately we were supposed to be on the road right now. And ultimately, like case numbers are down here where we were supposed to maybe have a show or two, which is really great. But ultimately, I think we're all glad for the decisions that we've made so far to hold off, and that way we can really feel good about being on the road when we do hit the road. So yeah, end of this month.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you for taking time to talk to me. It looks beautiful in Austin.
It really is.
If I was going to ever move back to the States, Austin would be where I would go.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you'd be welcome.
Thank you. All right. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Adios.